Jesus certainly started the world's biggest ever religious movement, but there are plenty of others. So what would he make of other world faiths? Can we work it out? What about Judaism, for example? That was where Jesus started, after all. And he emphasised that he wasn't trying to destroy his people's faith. He said he'd come to fulfil it, not destroy it. Lots of Jews did become Jesus followers, but others rejected his ideas bitterly, and so Judaism exists today as an alternative faith to Christianity. When Jesus appeared, lots of Jewish people were looking for a national deliverer, a Messiah, and many of them believed that Jesus could be the one. It didn't help that he died on a cross. Most people weren't expecting the Messiah to do that. But the joy, the confidence, the transformed lives of Jesus' followers led many Jewish people to believe that the resurrection really had happened, and that Jesus truly was the fulfilment of all those Old Testament promises. But after that initial surge of faith and belief, the reaction set in strongly. All over the Roman Empire, traditional Jews hardened their attitude and became the bitterest opponents of the new Christian missionaries. It didn't help when Christianity started to be favoured by the Roman Empire and the church became powerful politically too. And so-called Christian Europe wasn't kind to the Jews, and anti-Semitism spread everywhere. In the Middle Ages, Jews were denied citizenship. They were barred from government posts and excluded from the professions. Occasionally, the entire Jewish community would be expelled from one country and would have to go and live in another. Persecutions, pogroms, slanders and libels, and then the Holocaust of the 20th century. No wonder Jewish people have been negative about Christianity. Are Jews today still waiting for the Messiah? Well, some definitely are, believing that Jesus wasn't what they'd been promised, but looking forward to the day when the Redeemer comes. Others talk more about a messianic age of peace and justice rather than an actual Messiah. Says Rabbi Jacob Staub, the more that we work collectively to end poverty and injustice and hate and war, the closer we get to ushering in the messianic era, a time when all people will live according to the will and wisdom of God. Still others value Jewishness because it provides a way of life, a style of behaving, which gives life a sensible moral framework. And some Jews don't even believe in God. Reconstructionist Jews, for example, see Judaism as a precious system of folkways and traditions which represent the ethnic identity of one of the world's most remarkable peoples. Even if they're not the people of God, their historical achievement has to be preserved and honoured. Since the 1970s, we've seen Jews rediscovering Christianity in significant numbers. Organisations such as Jews for Jesus and Messianic synagogues where Jewish customs are observed but Jesus, or Yeshua, is worshipped, have become remarkably prominent. Now, what would Jesus make of all these different directions? Maybe the best clue comes from a statement he made towards the end of his life, when some of his own people had begun to reject him. "O Jerusalem," he's recorded as saying, "how often I've longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were not willing." Jesus loved his own people, and he wanted them to understand what he was all about. It broke his heart that so many could not see who he was. What about Islam, the world's fastest growing faith after Christianity? Well, Muhammad seems to have been an unusual man with one great conviction: the awesome uniqueness of God. He was impressed by the God of the Jews and the Christians, but he seems never to have understood clearly what Christians believed about Jesus. And so he rejected violently the idea of the Trinity because he thought it turned Jesus and Mary into gods. The Quran talks about God questioning Jesus like this: "And behold, God will say, O Jesus, the son of Mary, didst thou say unto men, worship me and my mother as gods in derogation of Allah? He will say, glory to thee. Never could I say what I had no right to say." And so Jesus in Islam is just a prophet, a greatly revered one, but no more than that. Muslims believe he'll come back to earth someday and will be a faithful Muslim. He'll destroy world Christianity. He'll kill the opponents of Muhammad. He'll live for 40 years and then he'll die. This doesn't appear from the Bible to be what Jesus had in mind for his second coming. So, while Jesus would appreciate the fierce reverence Muhammad showed for the authority and purity of God, he wouldn't have approved of much more than that. The basic flaw in both Judaism and Islam, from Jesus' point of view, would be that both religions rely on human effort to win God's approval. Whether it's keeping the Jewish law or observing the 5 pillars of Islam, Jesus would insist that human goodness is never complete enough to make us right with God by itself. We need more. We need the Son of God to come to earth and pay the price of our sins for us. And by ignoring Jesus' central mission, both Judaism and Islam miss the whole point of who he was.